What's up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by No House Advantage. All new users to No House Advantage receive a $25 deposit bonus using the code Awesemo. We have a four-game NBA slate today, a couple of extremely shorthanded teams in the New York Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets, the Houston Rockets, also missing several players tonight. So there's plenty of plays to like, plenty to talk about. One thing that does stand out on FanDuel tonight is that a lot of what I consider to be the best tournament plays right now are also pretty popular. They're just not as popular as they should be according to their chances of being in the optimal lineup. So it's a situation where maybe the backup type plays, the lower probability plays are also a little bit overpriced, or the ownership is coming in about where it should be. It seems right now like a slate where going to some relatively popular plays is still going to be pretty appealing. So starting out at number 5, this is an extremely contrarian play, the only really contrarian play on this list. Miles McBride is only projected for 3% ownership on FanDuel. He is $4,000, only point guard eligibility, so somewhat difficult to get him into your lineups. But he played 20 minutes last game in a game where he really didn't need to. The Knicks could have had him play a lot less. They could have given more minutes to guys like Quickly and Evan Fournier. They could have given more minutes to their centers, but they didn't. They got McBride 20 minutes. Now, Kevin Knox, who played 20 minutes last game as well, is also out. That helps to solidify those 20 minutes for Miles McBride. It's likely he gives you similar playing time tonight, but there's also the potential where if he does play well, he could get into the 24-minute range if things break his way. It's a very favorable matchup taking on the Houston Rockets. They're a very fast-paced team. They don't play much defense, and we have a very limited sample of McBride. He's only played 33 regular season minutes, but he has averaged 1.04 FanDuel points per minute over that time. That's not gospel. He is relatively likely to produce at a lower rate as time goes on, but he's only $4,000, not getting much ownership, and there is some volatility in his playing time, which makes him look pretty appealing. Coming in at number 4, the second most popular player on the slate, but Kevin Durant only projected for 45% ownership. And I say only because James Harden is still out tonight. The Nets are still extremely shorthanded. Kevin Durant averages close to 1.7 fantasy points per minute without James Harden or Kyrie Irving on the floor going back to last season. He also played 43 minutes last game. The Nets had eight active players for that game. Tonight they will have 9. You're still likely to get around 40 minutes from Kevin Durant producing at a point per minute rate that nobody else on this slate can come close to matching. So even though about half the field's going there, it should be higher. We have him with a 53% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Coming in at number 3, Evan Fournier, $4,300 with shooting guard and small forward eligibility. He has a 19%. He's projected for 19% ownership. He has a 28% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He's not a very good fantasy player. We all know that. He's not fun to roster. He's been frustrating all season long. He loses minutes at times. He doesn't produce very well, all of that. But he also has still averaged about 0.7 FanDuel points per minute this season. That's not good, but it's not horrible. And he played 28.9 minutes in 3 quarters last game. Evan Fournier not playing in the fourth quarter has been a common occurrence this year, but with the Knicks losing another body in Kevin Knox, it makes it a little bit more difficult for Fournier only to be limited to 28 minutes. Even if he's not in the closing lineup, even if, let's say, Emmanuel quickly closes in place of Fournier, it wouldn't be surprising if you still managed to get 30 to 32 minutes from him at relatively low ownership in a very, very good matchup. Coming in at number 2, Miles Turner, only $6,400 with power forward and center eligibility. He's projected for 31% ownership, but he has a 41% chance of being in the optimal lineup. The power forward eligibility is the really key piece here. On FanDuel, you can, of course, only roster one center, so the opportunity cost is really high, but being able to move Miles Turner to power forward makes him look very good. He's averaged 1.08 FanDuel points per minute since the start of last season. He's averaged 5.1 blocks per 100 possessions over that time. So he sets up very, very well for FanDuel scoring. So far this season, similar rates, 1.09 FanDuel points per minute, 4.8 blocks per 100 possessions. He is in a good spot against a weak Detroit team. He is underpriced. He just looks like a very, very strong option here, even at relatively high ownership. And then rounding it out, the number 1 tournament play, Montrezl Harrell, power forward and center eligibility. Just like Miles Turner, that power forward piece makes it easier to get him in the lineups, makes him a little bit more valuable. He's only $5,100 and he's only pulling 16% ownership. He has a 28% chance of being in the optimal lineup. We did not see the Washington Wizards split their center minutes. We didn't see 48 minutes combined go to Gafford and Harrell last night. It is likely that will be the case tonight. They are facing a Phoenix team that gives 48 minutes to JaVale McGee and DeAndre Ayton. So it would be pretty surprising if the Wizards don't match with 48 minutes combined going to Daniel Gafford and Harrell. Harrell this season has averaged 1.13 FanDuel points per minute. If he only plays 24 minutes, if you get a split right down the middle between him and Gafford, he still projects as a strong option at $5,100. If he plays well and finds a path in the 27, 28 minutes, he looks even better. So he's just a very high upside play. There's volatility in his playing time, but he produces at a very high rate when he's on the floor, not getting much ownership, makes him stand out as an excellent tournament option on tonight's 4-game slate. So to recap, coming in at number 5, Miles McBride, 3% ownership, 6% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Coming in at number 4, Kevin Durant, 45% ownership, but a 53% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Number 3, Evan Fournier, $4,300, 19% ownership, 28% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Coming in at number 2, Miles Turner, $6,400 with power forward eligibility, 31% ownership, 41% chance of being in the optimal lineup. And the number 1 tournament play on FanDuel for tonight's 4-game slate, Montrezl Harrell, $5,100 with power forward and center eligibility, projected for 16% ownership, almost twice as likely to be in the optimal lineup at 28%.